I tend to get a lot of questions when I do Instagram Q&As, with people asking about my transition, my whole journey in that sense. So I wanted to make a video to kind of explain that, and yeah, how I kind of got to where I am. I first knew that I was a boy when I was about 8. I didn't think of myself as being trans because I didn't have the language for that. I didn't know what trans was. I'd never heard of anything like that. Um, I just knew that I was a boy. My parents as well, I think at the time, because there was so little conversation about trans people in the media, which sounds great, they didn't really know what was happening either. So they reached out to Mermaids, which is a UK charity which helps trans people and their families, trans children specifically, and their families, and connected with other parents who were going through the same thing, who were just as sort of confused and in the dark about what was happening with their children, but just wanting the best for them, which is how my parents approached it as well. They didn't understand what I was going through or really what I was telling them and what it meant, but they wanted the best for me. They wanted me to be happy. They still do. So yeah, I was very, very lucky in that sense. And I think it would be a lot harder now for someone transitioning now to have the same experience that I had, because it would be hard for a parent to not be influenced by what they're reading in the media, and a lot of the kind of vitriol that's directed at trans people from kind of all angles. Um, so yeah, I'm very grateful that I was able to transition before that. It's kind of made it even more important to be vocal now about the experience that I had, because if it weren't for that, yeah, I think I would be in a much worse situation right now. Um, so I hope that parents now would similarly just want the best for their child. Um, yeah, you can hope. So yeah, for me it was a very gradual process. I gradually started going by Eddie. I cut my hair, and yeah, it was very slow. Um, I changed the pronouns that I was using again, sort of later on. It was sort of happening as and when, like as I kind of felt like each aspect of it was what I needed in the moment. Um, so yeah, that sort of started when I was around 8, and obviously a few years later I started going through puberty. Um, I wanted puberty blockers, but it wasn't possible to get them. In the UK, we went to the Tavistock, which is a gender clinic, and had a lot of appointments with them. And I spoke to psychiatrists and psychologists and blah blah blah. And essentially, nothing came of it. It was a bit of a disorganized um, situation, with records being sort of accidentally deleted and things like that. So we'd be starting from scratch each time. And the same with CALMS, which is a mental health service for children in the UK. Didn't have the best experience with them either. I suppose what it came down to was that I wanted hormone blockers and I wasn't able to get them from these places. So we were kind of at a bit of an impasse, because I wanted something which they weren't able to provide. Um, so they were never going to be very useful. Yeah, eventually I did start blockers. That was through my GP, and that was basically because I went to a private psychologist, two separate ones, both of whom assessed me and said I seemed in the right mind to kind of make these decisions for myself. I seemed otherwise happy, and sort of normal, sane, like however you kind of want to say it. This is the framework that they used, to assess whether I was able to make those decisions for myself. Um, and they wrote letters to my GP saying that they thought that prescribing hormone blockers would be the right decision for me. So that was what happened when I was around 16, which obviously by that point I'd already been going through puberty for a number of years. Actually, that was probably when I was 15, actually, because then I started T when I was 16. So yeah, but yeah, as I say, obviously by that point I'd already been going through puberty for a while, so I've already had some kind of changes which I wasn't happy with and which were making me quite uncomfortable in my body. Um, so then when I was 18, I had top surgery, which luckily for me, um, because I'd been on T for a while and because I had started T in my teens, my chest was quite small, so they were able to cut around my nipples rather than underneath. It's just a different type of surgery. It's called peri-areola. Um, Kind of like, yeah, it's keyhole surgery. So the scars are just around my nipples to kind of blend in quite well. Um, yeah, and honestly, that's the end of my transition story. Like, there's nothing really more to say, um, at least in terms of the future. Uh, yeah, I'm very happy with my body as it is now. I'm on libido hormone injections, which I take every 3 months, which is just an intramuscular injection in my bum. And yeah, that's it. No plans for any other surgery. I'm very comfortable with my body. I like having a vagina, and I have no plans to change that. Um, so yeah, that's my story. That's my journey in terms of my transition, and that's where I am now.